I think now we have gone
Yep.
live. Do you know what, Paul? Hi, Chris and Paul and everybody else who's joining us. We're still learning,
Hi.
so please forgive us. I still can't remember that we only go live when that red thing comes up on the screen. So I'll introduce us all. So my name's Clare Kennedy. I am the founder and chief executive officer of our newly registered charity, Kennedy Street. Kevin is our fabulous patron. We've got two wonderful gentlemen joining us today. We've got Paul and Chris, who are brothers. So they're going to bring a whole new perspective to the theme of this month is family recovery. And I'm really excited to hear both your stories. I think, you know, between us, we carry a powerful message. And that is the purpose of these talks, is to carry the message to the still suffering. Ultimately, is we want to give people hope, and we want to show them that actually recovery is possible. Doesn't matter how long it takes, doesn't matter how many routes you go round. But, you know, as long as you've got one foot in front of the other and you're giving it a go. Go on, Kev, I'll hand it over to you if you can do our little intro.
Hello. My name is Kevin. I hope you're all well, and I hope you're all surviving this lockdown. Just to reiterate basically what Claire said, we are Kennedy Street Charity. We do have, thanks to the lottery who gave us some money, we now have a connections helpline, which is 01273 758 561. And basically this month we're talking about family recovery, which is for every one addict there's maybe 6 or 7 people that are affected, and they're usually their close family. So what we're trying to do this month is talk about that and see what help we can get to you. And today we have the lovely Paul and the lovely Chris who are brothers, by the way, and who are going to tell us about their recovery.
Yeah, so over to you. Who wants to start first? Who wants to tell us their stories first?
Do you want to go first, Rob?
Oh, that's nice.
It's amazing. No argument. I mean, 2 brothers not arguing. This is maybe.
Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay.
Thanks for allowing me to go first. Yeah. Thanks for asking me to come along and share with you. And yeah, my name's Paul, and I'm an addict, and I'm an alcoholic too. And yeah, my story is not pretty. I first, you know, as a drinker, as an addict, I started out really as a pothead. I just smoked lots of weed. Well, it was solid then. It was like cannabis resin. I started out smoking that, and I thought that would just be my journey, and I'll just smoke pot forever for the rest of my life. But you know, I left school at 88. We were smoking a lot at school. Took my exams, left school, done an apprenticeship as a furniture restorer, and you know, this was right at the height of the rave scene. It just like 89, the rave scene come in. So I'd done a 3-year apprenticeship, and how I achieved that now, looking back, I don't know, because I was just popping lots of ecstasy, going out every weekend. I lived just for the weekend, the Friday, and then I'd rock into work on a Monday. Some Mondays I did, some Mondays I phoned in, and it was just, my life revolved around that. And now, like, I'm 48 years old, and I look back at that and I think that, you know, what happened is I never grew up. All my friends, you know, started to get mortgages and settled down, and, you know, they settled down and they stayed settled down, but I didn't. I just wanted to party, and I got back with a girl that I was with when I was 12 years old, and by 21 I was married, 3 kids. After 2 years of being married, I was just, I felt I didn't love her, but I stayed in that relationship for 15 years. We were married for 15 years, and but I just put that woman through hell, and the 3 kids too. And you know, there was police at the door. There would, you know, if I come home drunk, she'd just pick up the phone, and I still see the fear in the kids' eyes as well. Sometimes, you know, that of the police. And as soon as she say police, I'd be on my toes. I'd be gone, you know, and you know, I'd be gone for. I'd go out on a Friday, and I didn't come home till Sunday night, and I'd just go missing. This is before mobile phones, and she couldn't get hold of me, and I had no respect for anyone. I was just wrapped in myself. All I cared about is where the next drug or drink was coming from, and I'd be, you know, tail between my legs, going home, going, I'm sorry, I won't do it. And, you know, and sometimes I meant I won't do it again. And you know, I could see that I had a problem, but I didn't know that there was a way that, you know, I didn't know that I was an alcoholic. I didn't know that, you know, I didn't know there was a way out. And by 29, you know, she just kept throwing me out. And you know, I'd go back to mum's for 3 months, and then I'd get sober, and then I'd prove that I'd done something about it, and she'd have me back, and then I'd get my feet under the table, and I'd think, oh, you know, I've earned a drink, and I'd go and have another drink, and then the roller coaster would start again, you know, until the point at 29, she's just like, I'm done, I've had enough, I can't take any more of this, and I went to, you know, one Sunday, I remember it vividly, what happened. She chucked me out. I was up mum's, just crying, and I picked up the Yellow Pages, which was like a brick back then. And AA was right at the front, and I phoned the AA helpline, and the guy told this guy who was on the other end of the phone what was going on. And he asked me where I was, and he come and picked me up, and he took me to an AA meeting. And I remember it. It was in Worthing. He drove me to Worthing. I was shaking. They had cup and saucers, and they gave me half a cup of tea because I was rattling. And I, you know, I was like, what are they doing to me? I couldn't hold this cup, and I just felt as though everyone was looking at me. But, you know, the seed was sown for me there, right there. And it took me, you know, after going to AA meetings, I got talking to a girl outside a meeting. She told me about a treatment centre. I went to the treatment centre, and I went back to that treatment centre 4 times. And, you know, back then you'd done a long old stretch, and the last 2, you know, I'd done 9.5 months. And at the end of the 9.5, my daughter was having dramas at home, and they offered her a council place, but an adult had to be with her because she was 16. And I walked out of the treatment centre, and I said, I'm going to look after my daughter. And within 5 weeks later, I was back in the treatment centre, you know, banging on the door saying, please have me back. And they said, it's the last chance saloon, Paul. We'll have you back this time, but we will not have you back again. And I went back, done another 9.5, but not this, you know, there was something in me that wasn't, I wouldn't, you know, it says, we taught that, you know, you have to, the idea to drink like a gentleman has to be smashed for me to get recovery. And I still would hold on to that. Maybe one day. And and after 2.5 years, I went and drank again. You know, today's a very poignant day for me, because today, 10 years ago, I lost my partner. 10 years today. And why it is, it's A, because I lost her, and B is because when she was dying and we were taking turns to sit with her at the hospital, she said to me, you know, because I was in recovery, and she said, you know, just, you know, if you think of a drink, just see my face in the glass. And I was like, yeah. But at 9 o'clock, when I got the call from her sister to say she's gone, and I went to the hospital, and I saw her, this time 10 years ago, that evening, I was drunk, you know, because I couldn't deal, I didn't know how to deal with trauma or upset, or, you know, I didn't know how to deal with that. And I went and took a drink, and I threw my sobriety away, you know, because I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't deal with loss. I couldn't deal with the emotions. And, you know, and here I am today. I'm, you know, I basically, when I threw the towel in, I was with in a relationship, another relationship, and we ended up with both having a cocaine habit, and I walked away from that. I ended up in a hostel with just a black bag, and then I went into a bed and breakfast with nothing. A bed sit with nothing, and just literally a black bag and a duvet. And I woke up one morning, and I knew that I'd had recovery, and I said that tomorrow, I was on probation. I had a court order that I had to get sober, and I woke up the next day and said, I can't do this anymore. And I had counselling. I was rocking up to probation drunk. I was rocking up to counselling drunk. And they said, you're breaching your conditions. And, I was looking at jail, and I rolled out of bed that morning, 6 o'clock, and I got on my knees and said and prayed that please don't have a drink today. I happened to put my card in the machine at the cash point, and there was £100, and the rent was 90, and I decided it's fight or flight. Do I pay the rent, or do I carry on smashing myself to pieces? And I decided that I would pay the rent and keep the roof over my head. And that was on a Friday, and I'd done that, and I went to a homeless place and got a shower, and I had a full-grown beard, not out of choice, because I couldn't be bothered to take personal care. And yeah, I stood at this door at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I went in and had a shower and got a toothbrush and freshened up. A personal hygiene had just gone to pieces through being ruled by addiction, and slowly I met a gal, and she spent 25 quid on me. She was in recovery, and she filled my cupboards, and I realized that I was with the people that I should be with, and now I'm 5 years and 4 months clean and sober, due to actually surrendering and going, you know what, I can't do this anymore. So my advice is never give in, because I had 14 years of relapsing, of being a serial relapser. I wouldn't let go of cannabis. I'd let go of the alcohol, but I wouldn't let go of cannabis. And I would, I can have a line of cocaine, but if I don't drink's my problem, until I finally learned that everything is my problem. Any substance is my problem, and I put it all down, and until I actually got it. But I know people that they did give in, and they're not here, and I've been to funerals because because they gave in, and they never come back again. And I'm fortunate that through everything I always, it does get harder to get recovery again, but I had to face people that I'd upset. There'd be people I'd be dread seeing, because I think, I'd have to swallow my pride and just apologize and say that that wasn't me. That was my addiction. And I know this is about brothers in recovery, and there's 11-year gap between me and Chris, and I'm the oldest, and there's 2 in between us. And but I'm an alcoholic. He reckons he's an alcoholic, and the 2 in between us, I don't think they are. I don't think they don't qualify, and they don't even take a drink. And sometimes, like in the past, I've questioned, why am I like this? And because we grew up in a drinking family. We come from, my mum's one of 8 children, and my dad's one of the same. And there was always a party. There was always an excuse for a party. There was always a wedding, an 18th. There was an engagement. There was every year there was, and a drink was put in our hands, but our parents weren't drinkers. they just drank on occasions. They drank. My dad on New Year's Day would go to a working man's club and get drunk, and he only done it once a year. And then every year we were fortunate enough, we went on holiday every year as children, and our parents drank then. They drank for them 2 weeks, but then they didn't touch it again. They wouldn't do that from one year to the next. But what they were is they had an ism because they were workaholics, and whether that played a part in me, because they were, my mum had a couple of jobs, and my dad was a foreman, and he was out all the time, and we rarely saw them during the week. We rarely saw our parents, but I don't know whether that was why it had an impact on me or Chris. I don't know, but I don't question it today. But I don't hold any resentments to my parents for just trying to make the best for us. That's all they were trying to do. They were just trying to make a good life for us kids. And my mum would get a loan every Christmas to give us a good Christmas. So when she finished paying the loan in December, she'd get another loan, and that was just so that we had the best Christmas. So that's how it was, and that's how it is. And but it's what I do about it today, and I try for it not to affect my life today. And yeah, my life's turned around. It's like I'm a million miles away from my last drink today. I might not be tomorrow. Something might come along and like rattle my boat, which it does. My life's not. I'm going through a little bit of stuff at the moment with my kids. And I thought when I stopped drinking that everything would be amazing. And the reality of life, it's not always like that. And and I thought that we'll just be skipping through the tulips for the rest of my life, and it's not quite like that. But it's a lot better than what it is when I'm dodging policemen and getting myself into all sorts of troubles and in and out of court for this and that, which are just I haven't been arrested for 5 years, which is amazing. And yeah, it's just it's a completely different life, and I hope that I continue to carry on this life. And that's me. I think that's my 15 minutes.
Wow, amazing! Thank you so much, Paul. That was such a powerful message. So much identification, as I'm sure Kev has. Before Kev and I get involved in feeding back or just sharing back with you, I'll just add, like if anybody's watching and they get any identification, we stream across the bottom of our talks all of the different fellowship websites, so people can find out a little bit more about where recovery lies in their communities. We do get a lot of people contacting us after these talks, and we can direct them to whichever fellowship best suits them, or whichever recovery pathway suits them. We don't just integrate people into fellowship. We integrate them into counselling services, treatment services, wherever they need to be supported into, really. So thank you so much, Paul. We will share that to you in a little while. I will hand over to your lovely brother and let him share his experience, strength and hope with us, and then we can all have a chat. So thank you again, Paul.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me on. I got quite choked up when Paul was talking there, actually, thinking about family and stuff. It's a big thing. We were a family. For me, we were a family. We didn't have a lot, but we had enough. And by what I mean by that, we had love. And my parents weren't always there because of their isms. They were workers, and I grew up wondering, sort of not bringing myself up, because there was always someone there to look after me. But there's times I'd come home from school, my mum and dad wouldn't necessarily be there when you want to talk to your parents about this has gone on and that's gone on. And maybe by the time they come home, those problems weren't so prevalent, so big. So I spent a lot of my time sort of bringing myself up, or that's what it felt like. I was a fearful kid. And yeah, I was, you know, our house that we lived in was my nan and granddad's house. So it was the family house. It's like the song from Madness. Our house always had a crowd. There was always something happening, and everyone descended on a Saturday, and it was a big. We were such a close knit family, and I love my family. I love every single one of them. You know, and but we were what Paul said. We were brought up around drink to an extent that drink was okay, but drugs were bad. And I sit here a cocaine addicted alcoholic, and I definitely am one. I don't just think I'm one. I definitely am one. You know, for me, it's. And I hope, you know, I was going to pick a drink up at some point, whether I was handed one or whether I picked one up myself, it doesn't matter to me. And I always aspired to be that person sitting at a bar, holding court. You know, it was about finishing work and getting down the pub. And that was from a young age. That's not all I aspired to be. You know, there was dreams of rock and roll star and what have you, but you know, I could see a career path being that being me on a Friday going down the pub, and you know, in your work gear, holding court, and just being, you know, surrounded by like-minded fellows and or people, should I say? And yeah, the holidays we would leave early. We'd plot up, get somewhere. Usually, it was always in this country. We'd drive to somewhere. We'd be there by midday so we could get in the pub. And like I say, my mum and dad. They weren't alcoholics or addicts. You know, they might have had the other isms of one thing or another, but yeah, our family was surrounded by drink and not so much the drugs. You know, I'm a child of the 80s, so by the time I was getting into my 20s, it was the 90s were just finishing, and I was drugs were a thing. More prevalent than when my aunties and uncles were growing up. You know, they were there, but they weren't as readily available. So my belief is that I was always going to pick up a drug as well, just because it was so available. And I can't speak for anyone else; I can only speak for me. But that went hand in hand for me. Certainly, being able to carry on drinking, drugs were a big thing. But growing up, you know, I had to live with Paul's drinking. My drinking story was one of the same sort of stuff, you know, but maybe not as out there, or there weren't many policemen knocking the door. But I had to grow up with living with Paul, coming home 3 months at a time, you know, potentially giving up a bedroom or whatever, or at least just upheaval. And I've always said he's the reason I shouldn't be where I am. But it just goes to show it doesn't matter what. You know, there's four of us in our four siblings, and like I said, there's two of us that are and two of us that aren't. And you know, I was never going to learn from his mistakes because I had to make my own. And the reason I come on it today really is more about how I got in to the fellowship. You know, I like Paul, got married young, and I've got 5 children, so I spent a long time being a father and not necessarily having I never got it out of my system. But I also know now that if I'd have got it out of my system and had kids late, I probably still wouldn't have wanted to get it out of my system. I still would have had another 10, 20 years of drinking on top of it. Because now I know that actually, like Paul said, I didn't grow up. I still haven't grown up. And it's quite nice. I think, anyway, you have to ask my kids that, but you know, being that kid mucking about. But before it was I was never present for anybody. You know, I was sat on the sofa, and it was like when you see in a film and everything's like sped up. That was the evenings in my house. I'd come home, I'd have already had a few drinks on the train. I'd then sit down and proceeded to drink until I fell asleep on the sofa. And then eventually at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'd get up and go back to bed. But everything seemed to be going on around me. I was there in body, but I wasn't there in spirit or mentally. I was just there. And whenever I got let off the leash, and then all bets were off. Nobody knew when I was coming home. And when my drinking really took off, nobody knew even if I was coming home. That was the other thing. It was hard, because I knew after a couple of months that actually that's not what I wanted. I didn't want to be that person. But you can have all the willpower in the world. I've run a marathon. I've trained. There's plenty of things that I can do in the day-to-day living. But give me a drink, and I don't know when I'm going to stop. I don't know what point and where it's going to take me. I know it's going to be bad. And I come in around 2016, and on a Sunday, funnily enough, thanks to my brother and thanks to my wife, because what she did, she kicked me out and she gave me the gift of desperation. I needed to go to a place of darkness. I was already in a dark place. I was in a very, very dark place. I was ill. As we learned from our books, I wasn't well. It wasn't through choice. It wasn't through anything. I was ill. I was sick. I kicked off craving in my body and in my mind and in my soul. That when I was waking up, I wasn't always having a drink when I woke up in the morning. It never took me to that place, but I was always planning my next one. And it might be, we'll get to 3 o'clock because then that's an acceptable time to have a beer, however I could make it sound all right in my own head. But that conversation that I had in my head started from the moment I woke up. Now, you can look at other people and go, well, you're not an alcoholic, you weren't waking up and having a drink from the moment you woke up. But I was, because I was thinking about having a drink from the moment I woke up. I just managed to put a front on for everyone else. And it got to a point, it was July, August of 2016, I was at my lowest point ever. And we went on holiday. My wife was getting ready to divorce me. I didn't know that, or certainly she was in the process of looking at, where we go from here. We went on holiday. It was a make or break holiday. That I found out since, because I was so blasé about what was going on in my life that I didn't know anything if this was happening. We went away, we come back, and I picked up where I left off. To be fair, I hadn't stopped drinking when I was away, but the drugs was a big thing for me in the later to end towards my drinking and using career. Drugs was becoming a more and more prevalent thing. Whereas drink was every day, drugs was few and far between before. But in the end, it was more often than not that I was using as well. And we come back, and on the Saturday night, a week after we come back from holiday, I said I was going for a run, and I didn't come home for 3 or 4 hours, maybe even longer than that. I don't know. And my wife had not been speaking to Paul at this point. There was a bit of friction between the two of them, and that night she reached out to him because he's my brother, but also because he's went before me, like many of you lot have. Many other people that we are friends with have gone before me, and yesterday being a big day for the fellowships, being 85th anniversary or whatever, or we might even be older than that, I'm not sure, but it was a big day for people like us that were in recovery, and that was what my brother did that night. What he did, he come over on Sunday and he picked me up, and he did what was done to him, but what was done to him was done by someone unknown. What was done to me happened to be by my brother, and he was advised that he had to let me find my own path, and I can't speak for him, but I know that was the case. But what he did was he opened the door for me, and that night I went to Chapel Royal Sunday night. We'd been to another meeting before that, but we sort of missed a little bit. Our dinner it is, and I went to Chapel Royal that night, and I was hit by a lightning bolt. I heard my story being told, and it was by a woman who was older than me, but she told, and I there was that, you hear in the rooms that, there were actors in the room, what have you, and I've probably heard that story a few times, or many times from the meetings I've been in. People have told my story. None of them hit me the way it did that day. I was beaten enough. I was broken, and so going from someone who I shouldn't have been, the reason I shouldn't be where I am today, to being the person who opened the door for me, that's big stuff for me. and I knuckled down. I did 2.5 years. I've got relapse in my story too, and I did 2.5 years. I didn't understand what I was doing the first time round. I went to meetings, I had service, I worked the steps, and I did everything that I thought was right. But once I went back into the real world, that's when life became difficult. I tried to do everything and nothing. Gave it all at meetings at one point, and then work and family life fell apart. Then I gave it all to my family, and then my AA life fell apart, and all my other fellowships that I'm in, my CA life, which is my other groups. I wasn't going to mention my fellowships, but I'll let that sit now. But yeah, so then that would stop, and then I would move on. You know, I'd try and give it all to work, and then everything else would fall apart. And I trudged for a while, and again, it got to, I was 2 days from 2.5 years, and I picked a drink up. And then I carried that. I then threw myself back into it. I got involved in the fellowships more. I tried to work out what I was doing wrong the first time round. And I'm still not quite sure what happened. But like we shared just a minute ago, drinking like a gentleman, I went back out again. I carried that relapse for a long time. Not quite happy with it, you know, not being able to accept that I'm an alcoholic and I wake up every morning and I want to drink and I'm going to drink if I don't do what's suggested. And I carried it around like, you know, like a big black sack of doom, I suppose. You know, it was, I couldn't get over the fact that I'd given up 2.5 years of sobriety for the sake of a drink. And I carried it, and then I went back out. I went back out, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to drink like a gentleman. I knew I was going out for hell for leather, and I did what I've always done, which was run away from my problems. But this time round, I like to believe it's different. It's taken a lot, and I've had to really put a lot more effort into this time. But the one thing that for me it was, we talk about higher power, and the beauty of our fellowships is that we don't put a label on it. But I had to really develop something that I believe now is really the one thing I was doing wrong. And before I didn't know that I was doing it wrong. Before I didn't know that, you know, it wasn't working for me. And one thing that neither of us have mentioned is that my parents have both passed away. Being that much younger, I was 19 when my mum and dad. My mum passed away, and I think I was 21, 22 when my dad passed. And I always believed that they were going to keep me sober. I always believed that they were my higher power. And I believe that they're keeping an eye out for me. But now I know that they weren't enough to keep me sober. I also know that nobody's enough to keep me sober. The only person that's going to keep me sober is me. Thankfully, the people that have gone before me have shown the way. But nothing can keep me sober other than me putting the work in. I don't know what tomorrow brings. All I know is that today I haven't had a drink, and it might be midday, and some people might think that that's not an achievement, but for an alcoholic of my standard type, that is an achievement. And I'm going to leave it there. But yeah, if I've got one piece of advice to anyone who's struggling, don't hesitate to pick the phone up. And if you've been about and you know what this is about, and you can't be taught, or you don't believe you can be taught, you can always be taught. Just keep it simple and come back if you feel like you need to.
Amazing. Thank you, Chris. That was a really, really powerful message as well. Wow. What really identified with both of you. Yeah, and if there is anybody watching and you've got any questions that you want to ask either Paul or Chris, you know, please feel free to comment, and we will put the questions to Paul and Chris towards the end of our chat. Yeah, thank you so much. Honestly, I'm going to hand over to Kev, and I'm just going to put my camera off a minute because somebody's left the door open out there, and also can hear his Kev feeding back in the back of my ear. So thank you. I'll be back in one sec.
Well, I have to say, it's a privilege, always a privilege to hear your stories. And believe me when I tell you that people who are listening to this, you know, will get a lot from it. But I have a question for both of you, really. When Paul, obviously you were sober first. When you took your brother Just how difficult was that? Were you advised against it because he is a close family member? And Chris, were you resentful the fact that your brother was sober and taking you, or was it done with love and with good intentions?
Yeah, for me, I was over the moon to be taking him at the time, and I was glad that his wife had reached out to me, and for various reasons, because there was conflict between me and his wife. He hadn't spoken for 2 years, and she asked for my help, and to know that because I had my thoughts of my brother, thinking, is he, ain't he? He'd mention a little bit to me. We go to watch a football match and go, I think I've got a problem. I'll go, no, you ain't. You're not half as bad as me. You haven't come close to where I've been, and I wouldn't accept it. But the day I got the call, I was like, shit, he really is in trouble. And but to take him was the easy bit. And when I spoke to my sponsor about it, he said, you need to take a step back and you need to let someone else take over. He needs to find someone to help him, because family members can't help you can't help it. Show him the first part about it, but let someone else do the work, because there's stuff that I wouldn't want my brother knowing about me. So to open up to someone and say all my darkest secrets, that has to be to someone that doesn't know me, and I found that easy, and I guess it's the same for him. But the start of it was okay, but then I had him with me for 3 days, and he went, I'm going home, and then I'm just like, what are you doing? What are you doing going home? Stay here. And he was like, I'm going to a meeting. And I was like, because he wasn't asking me to take him, I was thinking he's going to go and have a drink. And then, and I'm looking to see, has he had a drink? Has he not have a drink? So I'm playing the babysitter part then. I'm babysitting him, and that's the difficult bit. That's the part where I think a family member can't take them through the it wouldn't happen. You couldn't take someone through the whole of your recovery. Your brother wouldn't be able to do it for them reasons alone. So yeah, it is difficult. It is difficult. But now it's not. I love if he says I'm going to a meeting, or I walk into a meeting and he's there. That's amazing. That's just amazing. And I've had to own a few things to him and say, look, I can't share about this stuff in a meeting because you don't know about that, and I'm going to tell you.
Right.
So I had to clear that so that I could actually talk about other stuff, because I can't share. He's in the meeting. So yeah.
I think what's brilliant as well is that the healing went further, because it was Chris's wife who you weren't talking to for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And she reached out to you to help him, and presumably you get on now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Better than we ever did, to be honest with you.
I'm glad you said that there.
They say it's a family illness.
Yeah. And Chris,
Sorry?
Chris, were you resentful of the fact that your brother had turned up to take you to a meeting? Did you think, no?
No, not at all. Deep down, I had a lot of hidden resentments towards him when I was growing up. But it's stuff that I didn't understand because I wasn't an addict then, or I was slowly developing. Those Sunday mornings or Monday mornings, and you'd get an apology, but it would seem like a not a sincere one. And now I know that actually, deep down, we all want to knock it on the head. So, no, there was a few resentments from growing up, but they weren't proper resentments. If you didn't know what I mean, there was stuff that I'd held a little bit for a while, but the fact that he was able to open the door, he was my hero growing up. Anyway, and for him to be able to open the door for me, it was bigger than anything. There was never any animosity. I suppose in looking at other people's recovery, if he'd have said to me, I think you've got a problem, in the midst of it, I probably would have told him to do one, because I didn't believe it until I was desperate. The fact that I was desperate, and then I didn't ask for help, but he came and helped me. That was amazing for me. And once I went to that first meeting, after that, like I say, it was me going to the meeting, so I took myself to the meeting. So he gave me a Where to Find, a little book, and a 24-hour chip. you know, which I still have all three. Well, I don't have the web to find anymore, I don't think, but I have the little book. I still carry that with me, and I have a 24-hour chip, and that means more to me than any of the other ones I've collected, because again, it comes from him, not from anyone else. And yeah, so it's big for me. But I'm that lightning bolt hit me, and I knew I was home. You know, I've got a lot of family that don't understand, and I've got a lot of family in the room that do understand. And I'm blessed to have two families. And I'm blessed to have my brothers in both those camps.
Brilliant. And this is, again, this is a question for Paul, or even indeed both of you, really, but more so Paul, because you're now, obviously, you were estranged from your ex-wife. But I'm just thinking of the person out there now who might have been thrown out, hopefully watching this, or someone who knows someone who's in the same situation you were when you were thrown out and the children were at home. And can you describe to me and for them the hope of the fact that you left under a cloud, and your relationship with your children then and your relationship with your children now that you're sober, just to give them some hope for someone who sat out there in the same situation that you were in? Paul.
Yeah, it's immeasurable. I mean, from they say, sorry, I missed that.
Sorry, there's a delay.
Yeah, no, I'm a million miles away from what it was. You know, hello? Can you hear me?
No,
I can hear you, but there is a slight delay. So yeah, you keep talking.
I'm going to talk. Yeah, no, all right. Okay, yeah, I'm a million miles away from where I was with my kids when I was drinking and where I am now. You know, but it takes time to get. You know, when I was told that, you know, when I first come into recovery, I wanted to repair it today. I wanted to repair the damage today, and you know, I was told, you know, give time, and just, you know, just it will come in time. But at the early stages, you can't see that, and you want it quick. But it has, you know, after 4 years of being sober, I know, you know, I put on Facebook, you know, I'm 4 years sober, and my son, you know, congratulations to my dad, 4 years sober, smashing it. And I absolutely just sobbed, because he was he's the youngest one, but he's the longest one to come around to it, you know, to recognize that I've made an effort and I've changed. I don't bring upset to him anymore. And that was just like, that was a massive thing for me. And they're all very proud of me. And, you know, I can't never forget about what I've done, but, you know, I'm not plagued by it anymore. But, you know, my outlook now is that every day that I don't have a drink is I'm making an amends to my children, because I'm not, you know, just for them to phone me at any point of the day, and they know that I'm going to be at the other end of the phone sober, rather than, has he had a drink? He's pissed, you know, he's had a drink again, he's off his head. You know, they don't have that worry and fear anymore. And, you know, but you can't. My advice is just not to let go of any hope. You know, you have to keep holding on to hope that, you know, one day it will get better, and inevitably it will. You know, the brother next down from me is 3 years younger than me. You know, I went and made an amends to him, and he just said, I'm not interested. Don't want to know you. Don't come to my house. Don't want you in my house. You're not welcome. You know, 5 years later, it's not like that. It's not. My relationship with him has changed. So yeah, you just got to hold on to every bit of hope you got, and just keep going. Because if you give up, then you give up, and you've got a drink in your hand again, and you don't get nowhere.
Really, yeah, I couldn't agree more. How about you, Chris? I mean, I know I can't believe you've got 5 children. I didn't know that. I mean, I know you, but I'm thinking, 5 children? You kept that one a secret?
Yeah, 5 kids, no TV.
Wow. So what? Tell us about some of the joys that recovery's brought to your family, and like we just heard from Paul, you know, these transformations that people experience is phenomenal. So how has your recovery impacted your family, Chris?
Just I robbed, not just my kids. I robbed a lot of people of their peace of mind. I know when my mum passed away, she asked one of my aunties to look out for me. Maybe it was because I was younger, or maybe she spotted something in me that I didn't know. I don't know. But I robbed a lot of people of peace of mind. And today, when I walk through the door, I worked last night and I'm working again tonight. And when I walk through the door this morning, they're not wondering what's coming through the door. They're not wondering if I'm going to walk through the door, because actually they know full well that when I say I'm going to be home today, I'm going to be home today. I do have to get the train, so it's not always hard and fast. But generally, it's not on. Dad's got to Brighton Station and he's gone for a drink, because that was the end of my drinking career. My 3 kids, I've got 5, but 3 of my eldest ones, we're a funny old family. I've got 3 that are home educated and 2. So not only have we got a lot going on, we are teaching the kids as well. But so my eldest is going back to college in August. She's 19 and she's going to do some adventure sports. My next one down, 16, is going to college to do music. And then my 14-year-old's going to college as well, because she's home educated and she can do floristry. And I can be there for every single one of those kids. You know, this is a new venture for 2 of them, and one of them's going back to college. And being able to ask them how they're doing, and for them to be able to confide in me, is I can't put words to it how good it is. You know, and most of the muggles out there that aren't like us don't understand what a blessing that is. You know how big that is for an addict of my time to be able to be there for my kids, because that's the person I am. That's the person without a drink in me that I am. That wasn't the person I was when I was drinking, and that's not the person I will be if I pick another one up. You know, my kids have been through a lot. At the times where they didn't know if I was coming home. You know, they didn't know where I was for days on end. And now they know when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And people can look at addiction and alcoholism as it's just willpower. If you've got willpower, you'll be all right. I know full well that that's not the case. I know that's not me. So being able to be there for my children is mental. You know, it blows me away on a daily basis that I can be the father that my mum and dad would have wanted me to be.
Amazing, really beautiful message. And it's the simple things, isn't it, that maybe, I love that you call them muggles, the muggles, civilians out there that aren't affected by addiction. You know, it's the simple things that we really, really, truly appreciate, and those are some of the most precious gifts of sobriety and recovery. You know, being able to just wake up in the morning and know that you've not, you know, destroyed anybody's lives or upset anyone, or, you know, simple things like, you know, having conversations. Do you want to say something? Okay, when he leans forward like that, it means he wants to say something.
I just want to mention the people that have actually commented. I won't give all the full names, but it's hello, John. Good morning, Jane. Thank you. Bob says a good share. Kylie, resonating with everything you say, Paul. Sinead, great job, Paul. Amazing message. Bob again. And Gary Wilson says hi, Claire. So I sort of say hello to all those people. And again, I just have to reiterate what a privilege it was to hear your stories. And, you know, hats off to you. It takes courage and guts to come on something like this and really expose your life and your addictions like this. But having said that, you've come through the other side a day at a time, of course, but the rewards that you've been describing I have to say this, it's very, very attractive to people are out there who are struggling now. That's the carrot. That's the money shot for us, is people who might have listened to, you might not listen to any of the story apart from the fact that things are now okay. So I need to thank you very much for that. And again, if you are struggling out there, please get in contact with us. The Recovery Connections helpline is underneath. And what we can do is we can signpost you to the right place. We can get you help. We don't want anything from you. We don't want any money from you. All we want to do is to signpost you in the right place. So your story, if it's like your story now is like the beginning of Paul's story or Chrissy's story, your story can be the end of their story, and it can be your story. And that's all I really needed to say at that point. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, like Kev said, if you're thinking about, you know, do I have a drink or a drug problem, you know, it could be anything. It could be, you could be a family member affected by somebody else's drinking or drug taking. It might even be a gambling problem, or what?
Food.
Oh, you broke up as you said it. Yeah, we've got really experienced recovery connectors who've had food addictions and who are in recovery from that. You know, I think the most important thing that we would reiterate is, like these lovely gentlemen have said, you know, there's hope. And the most important thing is just making that decision to first of all ask for help. And that's the only requirement for us. Is we can't do anything for people, but what we can do is, for those that have got their hands up for change and want to seek recovery, we'll get alongside them. You know, we're not a service. We don't offer detoxes. You know, we haven't got a rehab. What we do is we get alongside people and we introduce them to amazing people like these two fab chaps. What I would say is, if I was to ask you, you know, what your hopes are for the future, I know it's a big question, and I hate being asked questions like that, but I really want, you know, I want to know what your hopes and dreams are for the future too, you know. So let's start with you, Chris. What are your hopes and dreams for the future?
Simply more of the same. Just more of the same. I've got aspirations. I sent off script off to the BBC about a sitcom about the fellowship. But the point is, today I don't put my hopes and dreams on it. When I was in addiction, the idea would have come, it would have sat in my head, and I would have done nothing about it. The fact that I even started the script is massive. The fact that I finished it was amazing, and the fact that I didn't talk myself out of sending it blew me away. But what I want is more of this. Just another day, head on the pillow, not having a drink, because I'm a nicer person to be around. So other stuff will come if I do the right stuff, but just this is all I want. I'm happy with that.
Beautiful, really powerful message. Thank you. What about you, Paul? You're on silent. You've got to unmute yourself, or I can unmute you, actually. There we go. Look at that. Magic.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's exactly the same, really. For me, it's just about, I just want to continue with where I'm at. You know, I'm at 5. I want 10. You know, but I can only get to 10 one day at a time, and that's all I want. You know, I've got peace between my ears, and as long as I keep that, then I can deal with anything that comes my way, and that's what I've learned in my last 5 years. You know, if I've got peace, if my mind's at peace, then I can deal with the brown letters that come through the door, and I just want to carry on, continue to. Well, I've got financial goals and stuff that I want to meet, and you know, and where I want to do in my working life and stuff. But that's just normal life. But as far as I am, I just want to remain peaceful. Really, that's about it. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And it's true, it's so important to have hopes and dreams. But I think the beautiful thing that recovery gives you is we don't have projections. We don't pin our sobriety on the outcome of what we plan in the future. They're just plans, and plans change, don't they? You know, that's the great thing. You know, one of the great gifts of recovery is an ability to live in the day and just go, you know what? also want today is to be peaceful, to help somebody who might be struggling, and to be the best person, the best version of ourselves, which it's really powerful, beautiful message. Thank you so much. If anybody's listening and got any identification with anything that's been talked about today, we stream all the helplines that we can think of connecting people to. If you're not sure where to start, you can always ring us, and either myself or one of our recovery connectors will connect you to whatever resources it is that you need to start this amazing journey. And I don't say that lightly, because recovery is a life-changing journey. Like you just heard, fabulous. Thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate both of you so much, and I send you all the love in the world. All right, see you soon then, chaps.